How many ways can you destroy a marriage before it even begins? When the courier handed me my wedding annulment papers, less than a week after our vows, I finally understood. One hotel room, one harmless conversation, and one secret I could never take back. Can you ever justify betraying someone on the night you promised forever, especially when your whole world is watching? The champagne bubbles tickled my throat as I watched Lucas across our wedding reception, his smile genuine and warm as he chatted with his groomsmen. My husband of exactly 4 hours. The word felt strange on my tongue, like wearing shoes that didn't quite fit. I should have been floating on cloud 9. Instead, I felt suffocated by the weight of forever. Araminta, darling, you look absolutely radiant. My mother, Violet Vane, glided over in her designer gown, air-kissing my cheeks. Though you seem a bit distant, wedding day nerves. I'm fine, Mother. I forced a smile, adjusting my veil. The reception hall buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the gentle clink of silverware against china. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. That's when I saw him. Eliot Ransom stood near the bar, camera slung over his shoulder, capturing candid moments of our guests. My ex-boyfriend, the one who got away, the one who made my heart race in ways Lucas never could. Our eyes met across the room, and something electric passed between us. He raised his glass slightly, a subtle acknowledgment that sent heat rushing through my veins. "Excuse me," I murmured to my mother, weaving through the crowd toward the ladies' room. I needed air, space, time to think. My phone buzzed, a text from Eliot. "You look beautiful. Can we talk? Just for a minute?" My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Not here. Too many people." "Hotel bar downtown. The Meridian. Just to catch up properly." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. What harm could there be in talking? We had history, unfinished business. I deserved closure, didn't I? "Give me an hour." I slipped back into the reception, plastering on my brightest smile. Lucas was deep in conversation with his mother, Margaret, who shot me a look that could freeze champagne. She'd never liked me, always thought her precious son could do better. "Lucas, honey," I touched his arm gently. "I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I think I need some fresh air with the girls." His face softened immediately. "Of course, sweetheart. Take all the time you need. It's been a long day." The guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it down. "You're so understanding. That's why I married you." He kissed my forehead tenderly. "I'll be here when you get back." I gathered my purse and slipped out, telling my bridesmaids I needed a moment alone. The lie came easily, too easily. The Meridian Hotel was only 10 minutes away. I found Eliot in the dimly lit bar, nursing a whiskey. He stood when he saw me, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. "Araminta." His voice was exactly as I remembered, smooth, confident, dangerous. "Eliot." I sat across from him, hyper-aware of my wedding dress, of what this looked like. "This is crazy." "Is it?" He leaned forward. "We never got proper closure. You just disappeared." "I had to. You know why. Because I wouldn't settle down. Because I wasn't safe like Lucas." The words stung because they were true. I'd chosen Lucas because he was stable, reliable, everything Eliot wasn't. But sitting here now, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. "I don't want to hurt him," I said quietly. "Then why are you here?" "Good question. Why was I here? I needed to see you, to understand what I'm feeling." Eliot reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. "I never stopped thinking about you, about us." My phone buzzed. "Lucas, hope you're feeling better. Take your time. Love you." The guilt crashed over me like a wave, but Eliot's touch burned away my resistance. "Come upstairs with me," he said softly. "Just to talk. Properly, without all these people around." I should have said no, should have gone back to my husband, to my new life. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Okay, just to talk." The elevator ride to the 7th floor felt eternal. Eliot's room was modest but clean, with a view of the city lights. I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly aware of how this looked. "Second thoughts?" Eliot asked, closing the door behind us. "Maybe." I twisted my wedding ring nervously. "This feels wrong." "Does it? Or does it feel right for the first time in years?" He sat beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. The same one he'd worn when we dated. Memories flooded back, late nights talking about dreams, passionate arguments about art and life, the way he made me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. "I married him today," I whispered, "but you're here with me." His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. I should have pulled away. Instead, I leaned into his touch. "Eliot, I know." His voice was rough. "I know you're married. I know this is complicated, but I need you to know that letting you go was the biggest mistake of my life." The words I'd longed to hear for 3 years, the validation I'd craved, the closure I'd told myself I needed. "I can't do this to Lucas," I said, even as I felt myself weakening. "You're not doing anything to Lucas. You're just talking to an old friend." "That's all this is, right? Just talking?" I nodded, clinging to the lie. Just talking. But we both knew it was more than that. The way he looked at me, the way my body responded to his presence, this was dangerous territory. Hours passed. We talked about everything and nothing. His photography career, my job at the insurance company, the paths our lives had taken. He showed me his portfolio, and I found myself drawn into his world again, remembering why I'd fallen for him in the first place. "You could have had this life," he said, scrolling through photos of exotic locations. "Adventure, freedom, instead of what? Suburban mediocrity." The words hit harder than they should have. Was that what I'd chosen? Safety over passion. Predictability over adventure. "Lucas is a good man," I said defensively. "I'm sure he is. But does he make you feel alive?" I couldn't answer that, couldn't admit that Lucas's love felt more like a warm blanket than a burning fire. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Lucas. Getting worried. "Are you okay?" I glanced at the clock, 2 a.m. I'd been gone for hours. "I have to go," I said, panic setting in. "Araminta, wait." Eliot caught my hand. "Don't go back to a life that doesn't fulfill you. You deserve more." I made a commitment. To the wrong person. His words followed me as I hurried back to the wedding venue, my mind spinning. What had I done? Nothing physical had happened. We really had just talked. But it felt like a betrayal all the same. I slipped into the bridal suite using my keycard, hoping Lucas would be asleep. Instead, I found him sitting on the edge of the bed, still in his tuxedo, holding my phone. "You left this behind," he said quietly. His voice was steady, but his eyes were hollow. My heart stopped. The phone screen showed a notification from Eliot's number, sent while I was in the room with him. "Thank you for tonight, for being honest about what you really want." "Lucas, I can explain." "Can you?" He stood slowly, setting the phone on the nightstand. "Because I've been sitting here for hours trying to understand why my wife disappeared on our wedding night to meet her ex-boyfriend." The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. There was no coming back from this moment, no way to undo what I'd done. "It wasn't what you think," I said desperately. "What do I think, Araminta?" His use of my full name, not the pet names he usually called me, felt like a slap. "We just talked, that's all. I needed closure." "On our wedding night?" "I know how it looks. It looks like you chose him over me. On the night you promised to forsake all others." Tears burned my eyes. "That's not what happened." Lucas walked to the window, his back to me. "Do you love him?" The question I'd been avoiding all night, the truth I couldn't face. "I love you," I said, but the words felt hollow. He turned around, and I saw something break in his expression. "That's not what I asked." I opened my mouth to lie, to say what he needed to hear, but nothing came out. The silence stretched between us, damning in its honesty. "I see," he said finally. "I think you should sleep in the guest room tonight." "Lucas, please." "I need time to think. We both do." He walked past me toward the door, pausing only to remove his wedding ring and place it on the dresser, with a soft clink that echoed like a gunshot. "I thought I knew you," he said without looking back. "I thought we wanted the same things. But maybe I was wrong about everything." The door closed behind him with a quiet click, leaving me alone with the weight of what I'd done. My wedding dress suddenly felt like a costume, a lie I'd dressed myself in. I sank onto the bed, staring at the 2 wedding rings on the dresser, mine and his, separated by inches that felt like miles. What had I done? The next morning brought no relief, only the harsh reality of consequences. I found Lucas in the kitchen of our suburban home, methodically packing his belongings into a suitcase. He'd already moved his things from our bedroom. "You don't have to do this," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. "We can work through this." He didn't look up from folding his shirts with military precision. "Can we? Because I keep replaying last night, trying to understand what I did wrong, what I failed to give you that sent you running to him on our wedding night." "You didn't do anything wrong. Then why?" His voice cracked slightly. "Why him? Why then?" I sat at the kitchen table, wrapping my robe tighter around myself. "I don't know. I was scared, I guess, of forever, of making the wrong choice. And apparently you did." The words cut deep because they might be true. "That's not fair." "Fair?" Lucas finally looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "You want to talk about fair? How about explaining to my mother why you disappeared from our reception? How about the texts from friends asking if everything's okay because you were seen leaving with another man?" My stomach dropped. "People saw. My sister posted something on Instagram. Cryptic, but people aren't stupid, Araminta. They can put 2 and 2 together." I grabbed my phone, frantically scrolling through social media. There it was, Naomi's post from last night. "Hope the honeymoon suite was comfy. For one, wedding drama to yikes." 23 comments and counting. My hands shook as I read through them. "Wait, what happened?" "Tea! Someone spill. I saw the bride leave with some photographer guy. Poor Lucas." "Oh, God," I whispered. "Yeah, so while you were getting your closure, I was fielding concerned texts and trying to figure out how to explain why my wife vanished on our wedding night." I looked up at him, desperate. "I'll fix this. I'll explain to everyone that nothing happened." Did nothing happen? The question hung between us. Technically, physically, nothing had happened. But emotionally, mentally, I'd betrayed him in ways that might be worse than physical infidelity. "We talked," I said weakly, "for 6 hours, in a hotel room, while wearing your wedding dress." Put like that, it sounded damning. Because it was. Lucas zipped up his suitcase. "I'm staying at my mom's for a while. We need space to figure out what comes next." "What comes next?" Panic clawed at my throat. "We just got married." "Did we? Because it feels like you were already gone before we even said our vows." He moved toward the door, and I scrambled after him. "Lucas, please, don't throw away everything we built over one mistake." He paused, his hand on the doorknob. "Is that what you're calling it? A mistake?" I wanted to say yes, to minimize what had happened, but the lie stuck in my throat. Because sitting in that hotel room with Eliot hadn't felt like a mistake. It had felt like coming home. "I need time to think," I said instead. "So do I. But I'm not the one who needs to figure out what I want. You made that choice last night." The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through our empty house. Our home that we'd picked out together, decorated together, planned to fill with children and memories, and a lifetime of shared experiences. Now it felt like a mausoleum. My phone rang. My mother. "Darling, I've been getting the most peculiar calls." Violet's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Margaret Redding seems to think there was some sort of Incident at the reception. I closed my eyes. It's complicated, Mother. Uncomplicate it. Quickly. Because whatever happened, it's starting to make the rounds, and you know how people talk. That was my mother. Always more concerned with appearances than actual problems. I went to see Eliot last night, just to talk. Silence. Then, please tell me you didn't. Nothing happened. Oh, Araminta, what were you thinking? I needed closure. I couldn't start my marriage with all these unresolved feelings. So you resolved them on your wedding night, while your husband waited for you. Even my mother, who usually supported my every decision, sounded horrified. It sounds worse than it was. Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you sabotaged your own wedding for a man who wouldn't commit to you 3 years ago. The truth of her words stung. He's different now. He says he made a mistake letting me go. Of course he does. You're married to someone else now. You're the one who got away. But where was this revelation when you were single and available? I had no answer for that. Fix this, Violet said firmly, whatever it takes. The Vane name will not be associated with wedding night scandals. She hung up, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my choices. I spent the morning crafting explanations, rehearsing apologies, trying to control the narrative. But social media had taken on a life of its own. Someone had posted a photo of me leaving the reception venue and another of Eliot's car in the hotel parking lot. The pieces were falling into place for everyone to see. My work phone rang. My boss at the insurance company. Araminta, I hate to bother you on your honeymoon, but we've been getting some interesting calls. My blood ran cold. What kind of calls? Apparently, there are some photos circulating online that mention your connection to our company. Nothing inappropriate, but it's causing some buzz. Maybe you could clarify what happened. Even my professional life was being dragged into this mess. There's been a misunderstanding, I said carefully. I'll handle it. I hope so. We can't have our employees' personal lives becoming public spectacles. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Yesterday, I'd been a blushing bride with my whole life ahead of me. Today, I looked like a woman who'd lost everything in a single night. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the posts. Yikes. Glad I dodged that bullet. Jake Morrison, a guy I'd dated briefly before Lucas. Even my exes were weighing in. I threw the phone across the room, watching it skitter across the hardwood floor. This was spiraling out of control, and I had no idea how to stop it. The house felt suffocating, filled with wedding gifts we'd never opened together, photos from a day that now felt like a lie. I needed air, space, perspective. I drove to my parents' house, hoping for support, for someone to tell me this would all blow over. Instead, I found my father, Harold, sitting in his study with a grim expression. Dad? He looked up from his newspaper, his teacher's eyes disappointed behind wire-rimmed glasses. Sit down, Araminta. I perched on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk, feeling like a child called to the principal's office. I've been fielding calls all morning, he said quietly, from friends, colleagues, even former students who saw the social media posts. People need to mind their own business. Do they, when you make your private life public by your actions? I flinched at his tone. My father rarely raised his voice, but his quiet disappointment was somehow worse than shouting. I made a mistake. You made a choice, a series of choices, and now you're dealing with the consequences. So you're taking his side too. I'm not taking sides. I'm trying to understand how my daughter could be so thoughtless, so cruel. Cruel? The word hit like a physical blow. What else would you call it? Abandoning your husband on your wedding night to spend time with another man. Humiliating him in front of both families, all your friends. I'd never thought of it as cruel. Selfish, maybe. Impulsive. But cruel. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Intent doesn't matter when the result is the same. Harold removed his glasses, cleaning them with careful precision. Lucas is a good man. He deserves better than this. I know that. Do you? Because your actions suggest otherwise. The disappointment in his voice was crushing. My father had always been my moral compass, the one person whose opinion mattered more than anyone else's. What should I do? I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that whatever you decide, you'll have to live with the consequences. And so will everyone else you've dragged into this mess. I left my parents' house feeling more lost than when I'd arrived. Even my family was turning against me, choosing Lucas over their own daughter. But maybe they were right to. That evening, I sat in our empty house, scrolling through the growing social media storm. The story had taken on a life of its own, with strangers weighing in on my marriage, my character, my choices. A knock at the door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Margaret Redding, Lucas's mother, standing on my doorstep with the posture of a woman preparing for battle. I considered pretending I wasn't home, but she'd seen my car in the driveway. "Mrs. Redding," I said, opening the door. "May I come in?" Her voice was ice-cold, perfectly polite, and absolutely terrifying. I stepped aside, and she entered our living room like a queen surveying conquered territory. "I suppose you know why I'm here," she said, settling into the armchair Lucas usually favored. "I can guess." My son is heartbroken, humiliated, on what should have been the happiest day of his life. I sat across from her, feeling like I was facing a firing squad. I never meant for that to happen. But it did happen, and now I'm left wondering what kind of woman my son married. The question hung in the air, accusatory and sharp. "I love Lucas." "Do you? Because love doesn't abandon, love doesn't betray, love doesn't choose someone else on the night you promise forever." Each word was a carefully aimed arrow, hitting its target with precision. "It's complicated." "No, it's really not." Margaret leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "You had a choice between your husband and your ex-boyfriend, and you chose the ex-boyfriend. Everything else is just excuses." I wanted to argue, to explain about closure, an unfinished business, and the complexity of human emotions. But sitting there under her withering gaze, all my justifications crumbled. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to admit what you did, to stop making excuses and own the damage you've caused." "Fine. I hurt him. I hurt everyone. Is that what you want to hear?" "It's a start." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "My son deserves better than someone who would humiliate him so publicly. I hope you'll do the right thing." "Which is?" "I think you know." She left me with that cryptic statement, and I sat in the gathering darkness, wondering if she was right. Maybe Lucas did deserve better. Maybe we all would have been better off if I'd never said yes to his proposal in the first place. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from Eliot. "Heard things got complicated. Want to talk?" I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the reply button. Talking to Eliot was what had started this mess, but he was also the only person who might understand what I was going through. Before I could stop myself, I typed back, "Yes," because apparently I was determined to make every wrong choice possible. The coffee shop was nearly empty at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, just a few laptop-wielding freelancers and one very desperate woman trying to salvage her reputation. I'd chosen a place across town, hoping to avoid anyone who might recognize me from the growing social media storm. Eliot arrived 10 minutes late, sliding into the booth across from me with his characteristic easy smile. "You look terrible," he said, not unkindly. "Thanks. Really what I needed to hear right now." I did look terrible. Dark circles under my eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing yesterday's clothes because I couldn't bring myself to care about appearances anymore. "I've been following the online chatter," Eliot said, ordering a black coffee from the waitress. "It's pretty brutal." "You're telling me." I scrolled through my phone, showing him the latest posts. "Look at this one. Bride abandons groom for ex on wedding night. Modern women have no shame. 47 likes and counting. People love drama that isn't theirs." Easy for you to say. Your name isn't trending for all the wrong reasons. Eliot reached across the table, covering my hand with his. Hey, this will blow over. Something else will capture their attention soon enough. Will it? Because I don't think Lucas is going to just let this go. His mother came by yesterday, basically told me I should disappear. Maybe you should. I looked up sharply. What? Not disappear, but maybe this is the universe telling you something. You weren't happy in that marriage. You said so yourself. I never said that. You didn't have to. Happy wives don't spend their wedding night with their exes. The brutal honesty stung, but he wasn't wrong. I'd been having doubts about marrying Lucas for months, pushing them down, telling myself it was just pre-wedding jitters. I made a commitment, I said weakly, to the wrong person, for the wrong reasons. My phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a post. I opened it to find a screenshot of text messages, my name clearly visible. Oh God, I whispered. What? I showed him the screen. Someone had leaked our text conversation from the night of the wedding, the messages where we'd arranged to meet at the hotel. How did they get these? Eliot frowned, studying the screenshot. These aren't from my phone. The interface is different. A cold realization washed over me. Lucas, he had my phone that night, saw your text. He must have screenshot the conversation. Would he really do that? Seems kind of vindictive for a guy you described as safe and reliable. I thought about the Lucas I knew, quiet, methodical, always thinking 3 steps ahead. If he'd decided our marriage was over, he'd want evidence, documentation, protection. He's an engineer. He documents everything. Smart man, protecting himself. The casual way Eliot said it made me angry. This is my life we're talking about, my reputation. Your reputation? What about mine? I'm getting dragged into this too. I stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time since this all started. You don't care, do you, about the damage this is causing? Of course I care. No, you don't. This is just drama to you, entertainment. Eliot leaned back, his expression shifting. That's not fair. Isn't it? You swooped in at my wedding, convinced me to meet you, told me everything I wanted to hear about regrets and second chances. But now that it's gotten messy, you're acting like this is all just an interesting story. You came to me willingly, Araminta. I didn't force you to do anything. The use of my full name, the same cold distance Lucas had shown, felt like a slap. You're right, I said, standing up abruptly. I made my own choices, and apparently they were all wrong. I left him sitting there, not caring about the scene I was making. The few other customers stared as I rushed out, probably recognizing me from the photos that were circulating online. My phone rang as I got to my car. My mother. Darling, we need to talk. Come home, now. The drive to my parents' house felt like a funeral procession. I'd grown up in this neighborhood, played on these streets, dreamed of the perfect life I'd someday have. Now I was the cautionary tale mothers would tell their daughters. I found both my parents waiting in the living room, their faces grim. My father held a tablet. My mother clutched her phone like a weapon. Sit, Violet commanded. I perched on the edge of the sofa, feeling like I was about to be sentenced. This has gone too far, my mother said without preamble. The story is everywhere. The local news picked it up. Channel 7 is calling it Wedding Night Betrayal. The news? My voice came out as a squeak. Harold turned the tablet toward me. There it was, a screenshot of our wedding photo next to the hotel where I'd met Eliot, with the headline, Local Bride's Wedding Night Scandal Goes Viral. They're not using your name, he said quietly. Yet, but it's only a matter of time. How did this happen? I whispered. Social media, Violet said acidly. Once that first post went up, everyone became an investigative journalist. They've pieced together the timeline, identified the hotel, even found the photographer who took the wedding pictures. Eliot. No, the official photographer. He's been getting calls from reporters asking about what he observed that night. The walls felt like they were closing in. What did he tell them? Nothing so far. Professional discretion, but that won't last if they offer him enough money. I buried my face in my hands. This is a nightmare. This is consequences, Harold said firmly, and it's about to get worse. What do you mean? Violet and Harold exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. Lucas's family has hired a lawyer, my mother said carefully. A lawyer? For what? Annulment proceedings. They're claiming fraud, that you entered the marriage under false pretenses. That's ridiculous. I married him in good faith. Did you? Harold's teacher voice cut through my protests. Because the evidence suggests you were already emotionally involved with someone else. I wasn't involved with Eliot. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. Until your wedding day. The simple statement hung in the air, damning in its accuracy. They can't prove fraud, I said desperately. They don't need to prove it in criminal court, Violet explained. Civil annulment has a lower burden of proof, and with all the social media evidence, the text messages, the timeline. They have a strong case, I finished numbly. Very strong, and if they succeed, you'll be responsible for all the wedding costs. Venue, catering, flowers, everything. The number made me dizzy. We'd spent nearly $40,000 on the wedding, money we'd saved for years. I don't have that kind of money. We know, Harold said gently, which is why you need to think very carefully about your next moves. My phone buzzed with another notification. This time it was a friend request on Facebook from a reporter at the local paper. They're coming for me, I said, showing my parents the screen. Yes, they are, which is why we think you should consider making a statement, get ahead of the story. What kind of statement? An apology. Take responsibility, express remorse, ask for privacy. Admit I was wrong. Were you? Harold asked quietly. I wanted to say no, to defend my actions, to explain about closure and complicated feelings and the messiness of human emotions. But sitting there, seeing the disappointment in my parents' eyes, watching my life implode in real time, I couldn't find the words. I don't know anymore. That evening, I sat in my empty house, staring at a blank document on my laptop. The cursor blinked accusingly, waiting for words I couldn't find. How do you apologize for destroying multiple lives in a single night? How do you explain the inexplicable? My phone rang. Lucas. Hello, I answered hesitantly. We need to talk. His voice was different, colder, more formal than I'd ever heard it. Okay, do you want to come over? No, my lawyer's office, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your lawyer? You'll be receiving papers soon. I wanted to give you a heads up. Lucas, please, can't we work this out between us? I tried that. You chose to work it out with someone else instead. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. This was really happening. My marriage of less than a week was ending, and it was entirely my fault. I opened social media one more time, masochistically scrolling through the comments and posts. The story had taken on a life of its own, with strangers debating my character, my choices, my worth as a human being. One comment stopped me cold. Ladies, this is why you don't marry someone you're not sure about. Poor guy dodged a bullet, but it still hit him. The brutal accuracy of it made me close the laptop and pour myself a large glass of wine. Tomorrow, I'd face lawyers and legal proceedings, and the formal end of everything I'd thought I wanted. Tonight, I'd sit in the wreckage of my choices and try to figure out how I'd become the villain in my own story. The law office of Peterson, Hartwell and Associates occupied the top floor of a gleaming downtown building, all glass and steel and intimidation. I sat in the waiting area, my hands shaking as I clutched my purse, watching the receptionist steal glances at me when she thought I wasn't looking. Even here, 20 floors above the street, I couldn't escape the whispers. Mrs. Redding? A woman in an expensive suit approached. I'm Jennifer Walsh, Mr. Redding's attorney. He's waiting in conference room B. Mrs. Redding. The name felt foreign now, like a costume I'd worn to a party and forgotten to take off. Lucas sat at a polished mahogany table, flanked by his lawyer and a man I didn't recognize. He looked up when I entered, his face carefully neutral. "Araminta, this is David Chen, our private investigator." My blood ran cold. "Private investigator." "Please, sit down," Jennifer Walsh gestured to the chair across from them. "We have some things to discuss." I felt like I was walking into an ambush, but I had no choice. I sat, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. "First, let me explain the annulment proceedings," Jennifer began, sliding a thick folder across the table. "We're filing on grounds of fraud and misrepresentation." "I didn't misrepresent anything. Didn't you?" The private investigator spoke for the first time, his voice professionally detached. "Because our investigation suggests otherwise." He opened his own folder, revealing a timeline that made my stomach drop. Photos, text messages, social media posts, even credit card receipts, all documenting my movements on the wedding night. "This is stalking," I said weakly. "This is evidence gathering," Jennifer corrected. "All obtained through legal means. Public records, social media posts you made yourself, statements from witnesses." "Witnesses?" David Chen flipped to another page. "Hotel staff who saw you check in with Mr. Ransom. Wedding guests who noticed your absence. Your own social media posts from the weeks leading up to the wedding." "What about my social media?" "Posts expressing doubt about marriage, comments about settling down too young, likes on your ex-boyfriend's photos. It paints a picture of someone who wasn't fully committed to the marriage from the beginning." I stared at the evidence of my own digital footprint, seeing how it looked when compiled by someone looking for patterns. Every casual comment, every moment of doubt, every interaction with Eliot, it all looked damning when presented this way. "This is taken out of context." "Is it?" Lucas spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but firm. "Because looking at it all together, it seems pretty clear you were having second thoughts long before our wedding day. Everyone has doubts. Everyone doesn't abandon their spouse on their wedding night to spend 6 hours with their ex-boyfriend." The words hit like physical blows. Put so simply, so starkly, my action sounded indefensible. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jennifer Walsh slid another document across the table. Full annulment, division of assets, reimbursement for wedding expenses. The numbers on the page swam before my eyes. $43,000 in wedding costs. Half the value of our house, my car, even my engagement ring. "I can't afford this," I said numbly. "That's not our concern," Jennifer replied coolly. "You created this situation." "Lucas, please." I looked directly at my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband. "This will destroy me financially." "You should have thought of that before," he said, but I caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Regret, sadness. It was gone too quickly, to be sure. "I need time to get a lawyer." "Of course. You have 30 days to respond to the filing." I stared at the papers, the legal language blurring together. This was really happening. My marriage was ending in a conference room, reduced to financial calculations and legal strategies. "There's one more thing," David Chen said, pulling out his phone. "This morning, a local blogger published a piece about your story. It's getting significant traction online." He showed me the screen, and my heart stopped. There was my wedding photo, my face clearly visible, next to a headline that made me sick. "The bride who couldn't wait, a wedding night betrayal." How did they get my name? Public records, marriage license, wedding venue bookings. Once someone has enough details, the rest is easy to find. I scrolled through the article, watching my life dissected for public consumption. The writer had done their research. They'd found my social media profiles, my work information, even quotes from anonymous sources who claimed to know me. "This is character assassination," I said desperately. "This is journalism," Jennifer corrected. "And it's about to get much worse. The story is being picked up by larger outlets." As if summoned by her words, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Friend requests, messages from strangers, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. "You need to prepare yourself," Lucas said quietly. "This is going to get ugly." "More ugly than it already is?" "Much more. Once your name is out there, everyone will have an opinion. Everyone will want to weigh in." He was right. By the time I left the law office, my phone was unusable. Constant notifications, calls from reporters, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly wanting to check in. I drove home in a daze, only to find a news van parked across from my house. A reporter spotted me and rushed over as I parked in my driveway. "Mrs. Redding, care to comment on your wedding night activities?" I ran for my front door, fumbling with my keys as the camera followed me. "Is it true you spent your wedding night with your ex-boyfriend? How do you respond to people calling you the worst bride ever?" I slammed the door behind me, leaning against it as my heart hammered. Through the window, I could see the reporter setting up for what looked like a live broadcast from my front yard. My phone rang. My mother. "Don't answer the door," she said without preamble. "Don't talk to any reporters. Don't post anything on social media." "They're outside my house, Mum." "I know. We're watching the news." "It's on the news?" Channel 7 just did a segment, "Wedding Night Scandal Rocks Local Community." They interviewed some of your former classmates. I sank onto my couch, the weight of public humiliation crushing down on me. "What did they say?" "Nothing good. Sarah Mitchell called you always selfish, and Tom Bradley said he wasn't surprised." Former friends throwing me under the bus for their 15 minutes of fame. People I'd known since high school, suddenly experts on my character flaws. This is insane. "This is what happens when private matters become public entertainment," Violet said grimly. "And it's about to get worse." How could it possibly get worse? The story is trending on Twitter. "Wedding night betrayal. People are making memes." I hung up and immediately searched the hashtag, instantly regretting it. Hundreds of posts, most of them cruel, all of them about me. Imagine being this selfish, wedding night betrayal. Poor groom dodged a bullet, wedding night betrayal. This is why prenups exist, had wedding night betrayal. Someone had even made a meme using my wedding photo, with text that read, "When you say, 'I do,' but you mean, 'I don't.'" I threw my phone across the room, but I could still hear it buzzing with notifications. A knock at my door made me freeze. Through the peephole, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, holding a casserole dish. I opened the door cautiously. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I brought you some comfort food. Figured you might need it after, well, everything." "Thank you," I said, taking the dish. "I have to say, I'm just shocked. You and Lucas always seem so happy, though I did notice you'd been getting a lot of packages lately. Online shopping can be a sign of emotional distress, you know." She was fishing for information, looking for more details to share with the other neighbors. "I appreciate the casserole," I said firmly, starting to close the door. "If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I've been through a divorce myself, though not quite under these circumstances." I closed the door on her fake concern, adding my neighbors to the growing list of people who were treating my pain like entertainment. That evening, I sat in my darkened living room, curtains drawn against the reporters still camped outside, scrolling through the endless stream of commentary about my life. A new article had been published, "The Psychology of Wedding Night Betrayal. What Makes a Bride Cheat." They'd interviewed relationship experts, psychologists, even a minister, all offering theories about my motivations, my character, my moral failings. Strangers analyzing my psyche for clicks and views. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news. You got what you deserved." Then another, "Homewrecker." And another, "Feel sorry for your husband. Hope he finds someone better." The messages kept coming, strangers feeling entitled to judge me, to tell me exactly what they thought of my choices. I turned off my phone and poured myself another glass of wine, but I couldn't escape the knowledge that somewhere out there, thousands of people were discussing my life, my mistakes, my failures. I'd become a cautionary tale, a villain in a story that was being told and retold across social media platforms, news outlets, and dinner tables. And the worst part, they weren't wrong about me. I had betrayed Lucas. I had humiliated him. I had destroyed our marriage before it even began, but understanding that didn't make the public crucifixion any easier to bear. As I sat alone in my house, hiding from reporters and neighbors and the entire world, I realized this was just the beginning. The legal proceedings would drag on for months. The public attention would eventually fade, but the internet is forever. This story, these photos, these judgments, they'd follow me for the rest of my life. I'd wanted closure with Eliot, but all I'd gotten was the closing of every door that had once been open to me. And I had no one to blame but myself